All right, welcome to the third hour of the Elias Makos Show. We're going to begin this third hour in and around the Palais de Congres, the city's very, very important convention center. And for so many visitors, by the way, if you're coming to Montreal, right, to go to a convention, to go to some other event, often it's at Palais de Congres. For many visitors to Montreal, it's the first place they go to. And this week we saw reports about safety concerns in and around the area. Residents nearby say it's the worst it's been in years. The issue, right? There's drug use. There are homeless people. That is leading to a lot of people fearing for their safety. Even the homeless people that live in the area fear for their safety. And of course, it's happening at a convention center, near a convention center that's pretty important for the city. With more on this, let's go to Glenn Castanheira, Executive Director of Montréal Centre-Ville. That's the downtown Montreal business improvement area. Glenn, welcome back to the show.
Good morning, Elias.
You know, a part of me hates covering stories like this because, it's the best of times, it's the worst of times. There's so much good happening in downtown Montreal, and at least I can say we've done those stories on this program, you and I, right? So let's start off here with this bad story. The situation around the Palais de Congres. In the Palais de Congres, we hear reports that restaurants and cafes have closed their dining sections because of the situation. What do you want to add to this? What's your take on what's going on there?
Well, we can talk about Palais de Congres, but, what's happening in and around Palais de Congres is happening also, of course, in the Gay Village, as we all know, but as well in many other places. There'd be Cabot Square in the western part of downtown near Dawson and Concordia, where the situation is dire and it keeps getting worse. You have a similar situation at Quartier des Spectacles, in and around Le Complexe des Jardins and Place des Arts. And it's a problem, Elias. I think we should start calling it a crisis. Mm-hmm. That pretty much everybody in the industry or in our field, anyways, saw coming, because we're normally late in the parade when it comes to having these crises, such as with the housing crisis. Meaning that if you've been to Vancouver, if you've been to Calgary, Edmonton, if you've been to Toronto, you've seen that the situation with the homeless population, and especially the drug addiction, has spiraled out of control, and we're starting to see that right here in Montreal. Unfortunately, though, I do believe it's only to the tip of the iceberg. Okay, so how do we stop what we see in Vancouver from happening here? Now, you mentioned the people in the village, right? Mm-hmm. It was a few weeks ago, they protested in the streets, right? The people that live in that area. And one of their main message points was this, and this is coming from people who live in the village. These are progressive people, right? Mm-hmm. And as I said on air at the time, the most progressive part of the most progressive city and the most progressive province and the most progressive country in North America. They came out on the streets, and one of their main messages was, enough is enough with all of the social stuff that's happening to cater to the drug users. Mm-hmm. So I would love to know what you think about that. And nearby there's those streets, Charlotte Street, where they put a safe injection site. Yeah. And the residents there say, since you put the safe injection site, things have gotten worse. Yeah. But there are people that are like, hey, we need more safe injection sites. We need more locations for homeless people and drug users in the area. Where do you lie on that issue, Glenn? It's a great question. And I normally love being quite frank and transparent. Unfortunately, right now, I don't have a clear idea yet, because we're still soaking this in. What I can say is when I speak with my colleagues in other Canadian cities, and I'll quote one of them that I respect tremendously in Western Canada, that told me that the worst thing you can do for the homeless situation is precisely what many are doing in Western Canada, which is, in his words, making it as comfortable as possible as you can for these people to die on the sidewalks. Yeah. And that really struck me as an expression, as an image, and having seen it firsthand in other cities and seeing happening here in Montreal, I do believe that's part of the problem. To clarify, is that there seems to be an ideological difference here of, should we tackle the problem, one of them being drug use, and above all, these predators that are these drug dealers preying on these vulnerable populations and transforming them into drug addicts with severe mental problems. They are I would like to say, the core of the problem. Yet there are some groups out there that would like to say that, oh no, they need to consume safely and let them consume safely, and then everything's going to be fine. Well, clearly that's not working. But it's a very complex file, Elias, because we're talking about drugs. We can talk about housing. You can talk about mental health, which I believe is the main driver here. And then we really need to talk about the services that we're giving to these vulnerable populations. Downtown Montreal is the biggest concentration of social services for the homeless population in Quebec. So the homeless population that you see in Montreal, and we welcome everyone here in downtown Montreal. We're open for all, rich or poor, regardless who you are. We are not a mall. We're not the 10-30 or what the Royal Mount is going to be. We don't kick people out. Everybody's allowed to be here. Problem is, if you concentrate all these services here, then of course you're going to get an overwhelming population of homeless people in homeless situation. And the issue is, Elias, if you want cohabitation and social reinsertion, you need a balance. And that balance right now seems to be completely ripped apart. And I like to say, if you can't know your homeless population, at least if not by name, by face, then it's because you've lost control. So you really need to spread out those services instead of having everybody concentrated in downtown, because they're coming from all over, not just Quebec, but from all over Canada to seek help in our downtown, and we just can't take care of all of them.
That baseball movie, Field of Dreams, right? If you build it, they will come.
Yeah.
It applies to even terrible things like this. It seems like we are, as you brought up before, right? We're making it very comfortable for people to die of drug overdoses on the street.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, Glenn. I brought this up on Twitter a few weeks ago when the people in the village were saying enough is enough. I tweeted about this, and people accused me of being heartless and having no empathy. And I was trying to point out you have to have empathy for the residents as well. The law-abiding taxpayer that lives 2 blocks away from these areas, if they no longer feel comfortable walking down the street, that may be even more detrimental to society than the pain that the drug user is going through because they're addicted to drugs. Elias,
I think you really touch on what is the biggest risk right now and what we're seeing elsewhere. It's precisely that. That's why I mentioned the importance of a proper balance. I've always lived in central neighborhoods. I grew up with homeless populations around me. Many of them, I would be one of the few at their funerals, not because I'm better than anybody else, but because we would know each other. I grew up in the restaurant business, and you can have this conversation with just about any small business owner or medium size business owner. They are at the front lines of this situation. We don't hear about these little heroes, everyday heroes that help our homeless populations when they're thirsty, when they're hungry, when they don't feel safe, when they need help, when they need to use a bathroom, when they need where they need anything. Their first line of services are these anonymous small business owners that open their doors. The problem is, once you lose control, then everybody loses. And when you end up with what you're seeing in Eastern downtown, but like you've seen in other cities, is that you get a ghettoization. When the people who are in the front lines and cohabitate with the homeless population, marginalized population, leave, and you're left with the majority of homeless population, then it's a dark and scary spiral because nobody ever gets out of that black hole. And that's what happened in Vancouver. That's what happened in Los Angeles and in San Francisco. And that's what may happen here if we're not careful. So when I hear people calling, residents and businesses that are screaming for help, calling them heartless, I like to say switch places.
Yeah.
Try it out. Try waking up every morning or going to work every morning and stepping on feces, stepping on needles, finding syringes in front of your door, urine, blood, or someone that's overdosing or dying. It is precisely because these people have a heart that they're screaming for help, because no one is indifferent in front of despair. It leaves no one happy or with a positive experience. So if anything, I'd love to thank these people who live in those areas and cohabitate with these people on a regular basis, because they are contributing to helping these people live within society rather than living in a ghetto. And Elias, if we're not careful, again, I was talking about Royal Mount. You know, when Royal Mount opens up, there's one thing you will never see there, except for myself, is that you will never see a homeless person there. You'll never see someone overdosing at Royal Mount. All you'll see is wealthy people in La La Land to spend their hard-earned money. Meanwhile, we're going to park misery in parts of downtown where nobody wants to see them. And that's what's about to happen if we're not careful. And mind you, it's not just for downtown. If you've driven around in the West Island, you're starting to see these catmints appear as well. You're starting to see a homeless population at intersections. There's been catmints in Ahuntsic. Heck, Elias, there's been catmints, dismantled catmints in Granby. Granby, of all towns, is having issues with homeless population. We are losing control.
Glenn, one last question. I have to be quick, unfortunately, but the ideology that we've seen in Vancouver, San Francisco, and other cities you named, is that the same ideology that now is the leading thought amongst our local political leaders?
Great question. I think we're not there yet, but there are some similarities, yes.
Mm-hmm. Glenn, thanks for your time. This was an eye-opening interview, and I appreciate every time you come on. I'm sorry today was bad news. We'll catch up again soon with all the good stuff happening downtown.
We need to talk about all the news, good or bad.
All right, Glenn, thanks so much.
Thanks, Elias.
Glenn Castanheira, Executive Director of Montréal Centre-Ville.